Hello, welcome to the third episode of the Getting Uncomfortable podcast. I am your host, Eric Uresk, and this is the podcast where we have interesting people on, people that have been in dark places in their lives, and we find out how they climbed out of those places. And today I'm honored and privileged to have my friend, Prime Hall, on the show as our third guest. Prime is a former Marine. I believe he did some special operations work, and he is now the owner and founder of Deep End Fitness, where he does some really interesting things with water and submerging athletes and all kinds of wild stuff. He works with MMA champions and all kinds of professional athletes. So real quick, Prime, just give us a little background on your military career and what you're doing now, just so the guests can kind of get familiar with you.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me, Eric, and it's an honor. And the last, especially, you're expert in your craft, and I've seen it firsthand the last few weeks. I've been kind of taken into the deep waters of training jiu-jitsu with you, and it's been awesome, bro, and I'm looking forward to continuing. So I'm glad that we have that kind of reference point to go off of. A little bit about my background in the military. I grew up in South Texas, and I ended up going to a military boarding school as a young man, and that really planted the seed. And so after that, after high school, I went into the Marine Corp. I was in the infantry for 4 years, and after that I went into special operations, also known as Marine Raiders. Similar to Navy SEALs, it's just a lot newer. So we were starting out in 2009, so I was kind of right behind that, coming in, and then did that. Went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, and went to the Pacific and got to go to some other cool places, but got out in 2017, went into business school, and with my partner Don Tran launched Underwater Torpedo League and Deep End Fitness.
Wow. So can you explain what the underwater fitness and Deep End Fitness in particular is all about?
Yeah, definitely. So one where it comes from is I was a water survival instructor in the Marine Corp, and ran a large pool on base back in like 2009 when I was getting ready to go into special operations training. So that was going to be a year-long training course, and I was just trying to get as ready as possible. And what the feedback that I was getting from a lot of people coming back that were not making it was the pool. Get ready in the pool, and that's where a lot of people were dropping. So that's where I kind of made my focus and got comfortable being in that thing. I went to water survival course, and then my partner Don and I that run the Deep End Fitness and UTL now, we both worked at the pool at that time where we're training together to go in. So to give you reference, like the training that we had done set us up for success when we went into training, and we've basically been doing some form of it ever since for about the last 10 years.
Wow, that's awesome. So underwater survival, right? I'm assuming it can get real stressful under the water, and a lot of that survival is being able to deal with that stress.
Yes. And it comes from, in World War II, individuals that had fallen off a ship in the middle of the ocean. The ocean is a lot where it gets scary, to answer your question too. But so we always have to prepare for the worst case scenario. But individuals that fell off a ship, the ones that survived, they brought them back and they debriefed them, and they figured out what worked for them, and they took those lessons and they built water survival training.
Wow, that's incredible. And so you bring a lot of those skills today to athletes. That's
a lot of the foundation of it, being efficient, being relaxed.
And what kind of athletes are you working with nowadays? You can brag. Go ahead. It's all right.
Yeah, so work with a lot of different. When we started out, it was a lot of military, because that's our background, and we were right by Camp Pendleton. But in 2018, in the summer, we did an off-season NFL program for 6 weeks.
Okay, cool.
And then after that, it started. One of the athletes, Manti Te'o, he went to high school with Alima, Leigh McFarland, and then she started bringing fighters, and then that's how we met Dom, OJ, everybody.
Right on.
So
yeah.
And then a lot of the Olympic swimmers that are training for Tokyo that are down here, work with them, and then just different fighters, Bellator fighters, and also all different types of individuals.
Cool, man. That's awesome. And so what do you think the biggest takeaway? I mean, obviously, other than the physical preparation that being in a pool gives you, do you feel like that type of training helps you deal with particular types of stresses that you might not be comfortable with, or developing your mindset in a certain way? How do you feel like the pool gives people like an edge that they might not get in other types of training modalities?
For sure. So there's a lot. The biggest one is water confidence, and water confidence translates into confidence. So if you have someone that can't swim or has not had the ability or experience in their lifetime yet to build water confidence, once you start building that with an athlete or someone, you'll see that start to translate in other areas of their life. So I've taken high-level athletes, especially that couldn't swim really at all or very well, and then watch them train and learn how to swim to a high level, to a mastery level, and then I've seen that confidence transfer over. The other one is VO2 max and understanding how our breathing works in relation to our performance. All of the trainings that we do is focused around the acronym FREE. To keep it simple, it's focus, relaxation, economy of motion, and efficient breathing. And so we work different minimalist principles, but basically, like, with the fighters, and just to answer your question, it is a very good, it's just like the jiu-jitsu. It's a very it's a growth zone because it is an uncomfortable environment, and the deep end of the pool is, a lot of people have psychological stuff around the pool. So we creating a safe space for training is first, but then, yeah, it's a huge growth zone.
Right on. Let me just move this up just a bit for you, brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So, that's definitely something I'm looking to start kind of exploring myself in the future, because my everything I do since I retired from fighting is short and explosive. It's grappling, wrestling. It's just hard, and
like a bulldog.
Yeah, everything's like a sprint, and there's nothing like that's long in duration.
Yeah.
So my aerobic capacity has fallen to the wayside since I've don't really do much with the striking arts, like, personally anymore. So it's definitely something that I want to start doing for my health, and just it's an area of mastery that I would like to have. So you got here now, but you're not long out of the military.
3 years.
Yeah, that's not long.
Yeah.
That's not long. Okay. And so how long did you serve for?
For 12 years.
Okay. So and you were in some pretty gnarly shit for 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
for some of it, for sure.
Yeah, for some of it. And so obviously, I don't want to go into detail in the horrors of war. I mean, it's all pretty well documented. What I want to know about, and I think what the listeners will be curious about, is mentally, what kind of headspace does that stuff bring you into, where you maybe experience some difficulties from what you witnessed and experienced, and sort of the challenges that go along with seeing real combat, and some of the the worst parts of human nature.
Definitely. Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind, and honestly, this is the summertime, so there's a lot of anniversaries and just memories during this time, specifically, even this week. Like, tomorrow's a big one, but it definitely, when you're in that environment, you're just thinking about saving the individuals around you from the left and the right. And I've seen, like, I grew up in kind of more of a street smart, went and survival stuff. I've seen some of your stuff, like the bouncer, like that kind of stuff, like doing all that. So when I was in this situation, I was like, man, I have some type of, like, I feel like I have the essay or the know what to do and how to keep, like, just focus on keep people safe, because oftentimes it wasn't just special operations. We'd have a couple of us, and we would be protecting like 20 Army guys or contractors or whoever they were, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so it seems like the military, in order to get these units, I've been doing a lot of studying on leadership, and a lot of what the Simon Sinek talks about. He uses the military as a reference. He said, when you keep people safe, or safety becomes the main concern, and we know that we're going to try to take care of each other, or that our survival depends on it, we're much more likely to be inclined to work together. And then when it's every man for themselves and people don't feel like the unit's going to take care of them, they're more likely to just look out for their own needs. So is that like specifically something that the military like digs into your mind, is that your job isn't about you and getting your needs met. It's about taking care of the guy next to you. And with that mindset, it makes sure that the unit stays cohesive no matter what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we're going through our hell week and like all of our like really harsh points of training, the entire time we're in small unit teams, we're being evaluated. When we're in a leadership position, we're being evaluated, and when we're not in a leadership position, we're being evaluated to see if we try to sabotage or whatever that is. But the entire time we're always have a casualty, or we're always saving someone, or we're always, I don't know, that's a key point of everything, is working together as a team. The motto of Marine Raiders is gung-ho, which means work together. And
how would that go if you didn't work together? And I know it's a stupid question, but I'm asking to sort of drive home a point.
If you didn't work together, then what happens is basically, there's cliques that form, and then it's a competition, and then everybody's in it for themselves, or everybody's moving in a different direction, and nobody's on the same frequency. And when that shit hits the fan, whether that's a grenade that comes over the wall or whatever that is, if everybody's not on the same page or has the same common ground, that situation's going to be completely catastrophic compared to something.
People are going to lose their lives.
Right.
Yeah. And have you witnessed like where people sort of take their own interests at hand when it was probably not the most opportune time, or do guys pretty much stick to the script of protecting the guy next to him and sticking to the mission?
Yeah, for the most part, like there's some, I've seen some really heroic shit, so crazy, and it's really, people do heroic stuff looking back. The heroic actions were for love for the teammate that they were putting themselves at risk for. So it was the love of the team and the small unit that really carried us in through those heroic situations, or those horrific things.
And when you see an act of like heroics, what that has to inspire you. When I see an act of kindness or anything like that that's random and it's pure and it's like heartfelt, it definitely like hits you somewhere.
Me too.
And I can only imagine. I've never been in that type of combat, so I can't say that I know or I understand, because I don't. But when you witness an act of heroics, right, that I can only imagine that inspires the rest of the guys around you to kind of want to match that, and not in a competitive way, but just like seeing sort of selflessness at its like highest form, where a lot of times the result is I lose my life to protect somebody and be a hero.
Yeah, looking back on it, when you put it in perspective and you see the people's lives that were saved and the risk that was taken in some of those events, yes. And what was the second part of your question?
That when I see an act of heroics, like it would inspire me to want to match that level of selflessness.
So, like, I just always felt, even in those situations, the first thing that comes to mind was just that I always felt like I was a new guy, over and over again. Through every horrific situation, I would always evaluate myself and just be like, there's always these people that have been through way much more or done, whatever. And I always kind of, I don't know if that was just part of the culture, but that was just the mindset at the time. So it was kind of rest and rinse and repeat. This is nothing. Move forward, shift, let's go.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're in that, man, you have no choice but to just kind of keep moving forward, right?
No choice. And that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things that I can be helpful with certain people, is during stressful situations. So for example, when I was in Afghanistan, we lived in an enemy village for 7 months. So like dropped off there, lived there for 7 months, and every day was wild. Like shit would happen that was just off the chain. Like you never know. You're going to get attacked some days and it's going to be the A team. You're going to get attacked some days, it's going to be the D team. You're going to not get attacked some days, but someone's going to get blown up and you're going to have to like deal with all these casualties and try to save their lives, and then you're gonna get attacked, but it's only gonna be a couple shots, and then it's like, but it's just 7 months.
Yeah.
And it's like, and walking through minefields the whole time and playing that game and all this other stuff. So my point is that there would be some days that would be really hard, and all of a sudden it's like you wake up and it's just boom, it's on game time. And when those situations, I had found it's mostly mental, where you just slow everything down. It's like, all right, get a breath, get behind a wall, get space, assess the situation, make a decision, communicate, and really slow everything down as much as possible. I don't know if that's makes sense, but
absolutely,
basically,
yeah.
like, if I have to, like this week's going fairly well for me, right? There was some challenges in training and stuff like that, but basically, if all of a sudden things dramatic, like if I got jumped on the way to my car, I would be like, slow it down. Like, let's just make let's make it back to me starting my car. That's it. Like, just, and then make it to the next meal, and then like make it from there. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I've had experiences. I mean, I've growing up in violent environments, bouncing in violent environments. I've had similar crazy situations where it's like me, a crew of guys, maybe 8 of us with like 15 Latin Kings in a parking lot, and the world just seems to slow down, and bodies are dropping, and there's yelling in Spanish, and it's crazy, and knives are coming out, and it's wild, and yeah, man, it's the same kind of deal. It's like protect your boys and destroy, and like terminate this threat, to the best of your ability without going to jail, right? So we can also have to do this like without going to jail. Now, I would certainly rather do that than be dropped off in enemy territory in Afghanistan. I don't want to draw too many parallels there, but I do understand to a degree. Okay, so you have all these gnarly experiences, and I know that you have a story of transformation, and stories of transformation, personal transformation, we usually have to start in a dark place to get there. Okay, where did you find yourself going to those dark places mentally, and if you want to just talk about like, where you kind of found yourself?
Yeah, so I got out in 2017. It was pretty abrupt because what happened. It was a medical separation, so I didn't plan on getting out, but all of a sudden I was going to medical appointments for several months, and then I got out. So that being said, I wasn't on a team anymore, so I left my team or your tribe, not on it anymore. So I was detached, and then I was transitioning out of the military to being a regular person and a civilian. And at that point, I was having trouble even like being around groups, So I had a therapist at that point that I had to go to in order to go to this like rehabilitative strength training. My unit had me go the unit doctor had me see the psych and go through this process. So I went through this whole enhanced exposure therapy where you're going over all the events that happened, but then also I would be going out and going to like Disneyland as a homework assignment and stuff like that to condition myself to be around groups and just to get like comfortable and just and I didn't really understand the term surrender at that point, so I was just completely just like resistant to everything, right?
It's so much harder when you're when I'm resisting things, right? When I'm in a state of resistance of anything, it could be just fucking I don't want to be in this traffic right now, you know what I mean? And I'm it's so much fucking harder.
Yes. So I've been in resistance so much, and so basically I was in resistance. I had a lot of traumatic stuff from not only the military, but then also childhood. So one instance from the military that just kept replaying was that I got blasted with a rocket-propelled grenade while I was eating breakfast one day. It was actually 8 years ago from tomorrow morning.
Wow.
So I went out to the gate. I had one of my interpreters. I got woken up at like 7 a.m. I went outside with my interpreter and talked with whoever it was, sent him away, and I went in, and I'm basically in there just like with sandals, board shorts on with a pistol, just a Glock, and like it's like 7:30, 8 in the morning, but it's already like 100 degrees out there. And so like sunglasses on top of my head. And so I'm eating cereal and I got blasted with an rocket propelled grenade right here.
Wow.
By my own guy that's in the tower right here. That's our
Misfire?
Afghan Special Forces guy.
Oh,
that
no.
turned on us.
Turned
Yes,
on you.
yes.
Wow.
So then now I'm in an insider attack. Imagine the psychological fuck show that is. So then got black and then unconscious, can't see anything out of my eyes, like thought I was blinded, got through that, worked through that situation. Then my eyes, then I could see, then everything's just chaotic. And because we lived in that enemy village and we're in that little place, the last thing that you would think is that it's coming from inside your camp or inside your safety bubble, just like you're just saying.
Yeah.
We got the safe space.
No
That's
more.
not and that's compromised.
Yeah. Oof,
So
that's
then
fucked
that
up,
was
man.
scary, but then once we figured out that exactly like where that it was coming exactly from the tower, because until we found out it was him, he was blasting the shit out of us.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, what led us to that?
We were just talking about, where you went to these dark places.
Oh yeah,
upon
so
getting out. And
so I had this incident that was kind of weird stuff like that was replaying and stuff that had happened to me throughout kind of my adult life, but then also coupled with my son's about 7 right now. So whenever I was about 6, that's when I started having some serious abuse going on, and
Yeah,
so
same.
When my son started to get that age, I kind of like started to have the flashbacks and reoccurrence, and I was like, dude, if that happened at my house or if that happened, in my world, for one day, it'd be game over.
Yeah.
I would never do that, but if these things that happened to me were happening, it would be game over.
Yeah.
And so that started to that's also a victim story, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be completely transparent, that's a victim story.
Sure.
But that started to eat me up. And so that on top of the survivor's guilt of surviving these things where it's like...
Did you feel like you were holding on to like anger towards your abuser? Is that what you felt like was kind of staying with you?
That's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
And just resentment and holding on and because of programming and because of just things that you've heard or people or what they've said, like if someone does something so horrible, like how could I ever explain that I forgave that person?
Right.
That's where I was at.
I understand.
That's where I was at. How could I explain to you,
Right.
Coach Eric, why I forgave my dad? Now I can. I couldn't have last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand, man. For me, and it's still something that I battle. Obviously, to things are much better for me than they've ever been, but there's still sometimes like a lingering feeling of like a lack of safety. Whether it's I don't feel emotionally safe, and it doesn't make sense. Like if I was my life is great, right? I have a great marriage, I have a great career, everything's cool, but there's this like lack of safety, and it's because when I was a kid, like the fucking tyrants could come at any time, and you didn't know when the tyrant was coming. And it was the waiting for the tyrant. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't always ass whoopings. It was a lot of times just the threat of the ass whooping that was scary. Once you get the ass whooping, it's over, right? But like that looming of the ass whooping, waiting, that kept me in such a state of anxiety. And it's something like I literally have to walk around when it gets bad, and I have to like remind myself. I have to get still because I can feel it in my body. I can feel the threat in like deep in the pit of my chest, and I have to remind myself, like, okay, that's what that is. That's an old story, and that you're safe right now. But my body still holds on to that, and it's something that I work with, and it's way less, especially when I can, because oftentimes I won't realize that I'm feeling in danger. I'll just be doing things, you know what I mean, and just kind of doing things just to do them and racing. I'm like, what am I racing? Oh, I'm not racing. I'm running. I'm running from this feeling of danger that's inside of me.
And you just stay busy.
And I just stay, just got to task, you know? And I'm like, oh, I'm being productive. But it's like, dude, I'm not enjoying anything that I'm doing when I'm doing that. I'm protecting myself. Yeah. And it's a fucked up feeling to feel like you need to be on guard to protect yourself just walking around. I'm sure you've probably experienced something similar before.
Yeah. And the therapy that I went through kind of taught me that there's a subconscious mind going on and a conscious mind. So your conscious mind is here, it's present, we're in California, but the subconscious holds a Rolodex of memories of your entire life. And that can come in at any point and put you into fight or flight, fight or flight can be used as an advantage, but if we're in fight or flight for too long, we burn out.
Yeah, man, and I've experienced that, like staying in sympathetic too long, you know, where I can't get my parasympathetic to engage, and I got to do I got to do breathing exercises, I got to meditate, I got to do cold water exposure, like I got to do a lot of stuff sometimes just to fucking be normal. Yeah, just to get a jump start. Yeah, to get a fucking jump start. That's exactly what it's like. I can't get out of that stress state, so I literally got to fucking jump start my body. Yeah, dude, it's fucking wild, man. It's wild. So do you have anything that you do to get into that parasympathetic state?
Yeah, breathing. So one breathing exercise, we can do it real quick. It's 20 seconds.
Okay.
So first off, just focus on diaphragmatic breathing. So hands on the stomach, blow out all the air. And take a full breath in from the bottom of your stomach. You fill the bottom in. And then you fill up the lungs. And then you're done once the shoulders rise. So you fill up the whole thing, the diaphragm into the lungs. And then blow it all out. And just do one more. And a lot of times as adults, when we walk around, we start to suck in our stomachs. It's just a habit, natural progression. So end up chest breathing. We want to engage just like a baby. We want to engage the stomach and the diaphragm with the breathing. So for the next one, this is to shift the nervous system, everything else. We're going to just do upper regulation, deep inhale through the nose, out through the mouth for 20 seconds. Ready? Okay. Good. Now right into soothing breathing, relaxing breathing. So we're going to go 4 seconds in through the nose, 10 seconds out through the mouth, like we're breathing out through a straw, like this. So if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling antsy or you just like have a lot on your mind, you want to declutter and just get focused on one thing, which is your breath, you can do the upper regulation like we did. If you're in between rounds or you're trying to lower your heart rate, you can do that. We call it straw breathing, where we breathe in for 4 seconds through the nose and then out through like 7 to 10 through a straw through our mouth. And then the last one is triangle breathing. So you pick however many seconds you want. For this, we'll just do an example of 4 seconds. So we're always breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth for everything else except for that max VO2 hold like we did. Okay, so we're going to do a triangle. So we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. In through the nose. Go ahead. Hold for 4 seconds. And then out through the mouth for 4. Go ahead. And then you just continue that, or whatever seconds, whatever works for you.
Very cool, man. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, that was good, man. I actually feel a little bit calmer as we're sitting here. I'm sure that's yeah. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that you have to pick up when your sanity fucking depends on it. Huh? Right? For me, that's a real thing, man. Like when I get in parasympathetic too long, like my life gets fucked up. You know what I mean? My sleep starts to get fucked up. Yeah. I just had to go home for a wake and sleep in the house I grew up in. And man, I came home with some memories in my stomach, and I wasn't aware of it, but I didn't sleep for the first 2 weeks I was home. Yeah. And I had to process some stuff, some memories, from my childhood that were really uncomfortable, and they were centered around abuse, and I had to go process that stuff and work out a little bit of forgiveness, and particularly towards myself, and in doing that, I started to get my sleep back little by little and get, but all the physical jump start stuff, it's like that stuff, the physical stuff is helpful to mitigate, to deal with symptoms. But for me, I got to deal with the shit, you know what I mean? With those leftover memories that are sort of inside my body, those emotional sort of landmines that I still
Yeah.
have somewhere, and every now and then I step on one of these fucking landmines, and I got to deal with it. But
Yeah.
I'm thankful now. I love it because as soon as I'm aware of it, I know how to process these things and you know, be done with them. But for like a long part of my life, I wasn't aware of these things, you know. So I
Right.
was just walking around
You
asleep.
didn't have the manual.
No,
Yeah.
no tools,
We're just-
no tools, just running on fucking chaos.
Yeah, and you went hard.
Yeah, and just hurting everybody around me, destroying relationships, selfish as
Yeah.
fuck, lonely all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God for these fucking tools. Where did you start to have to develop your emotional intelligence? And
Man, I had a lot of breakdowns in my transition out. You know, I kind of hit rock bottom with my mental health, with all of the memories, as I was saying, probably about a year out. So what ended up happening is I had gotten contacted by some shaman, and I had gone and done the DMT toad ceremonies.
oh, cool. Did you do the ayahuasca or just the toad?
The toad.
Okay,
and
cool.
I've done the ayahuasca too.
Okay.
Yeah, but the toad, that completely opened me up. So that
Yeah.
cracked me open and just like gave me a whole new perspective really on life. I feel like I was kind of reborn in a way, because that's how closed off I was.
Yeah.
and resistant. So
That's a jump start right
Yeah,
there,
no.
isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
learn
Ayahuasca.
surrender.
Yeah, I never did anything like that, but ayahuasca for me, and I've been well into my spiritual development for a long time. I mean, I've been sober since I'm 23. I'm almost 40, and
Yeah,
and I've been on
that's dope.
and I've been on this like spiritual development path for a long time. Mind you, it's been slow and painful. So like people get this idea that like the spiritual is like we're all like in these circles and everybody's chill all the time. It's like the spiritual path and the development path for me has been mostly just ugly pain. You know,
Yeah.
mostly like really hardcore ugly pain, and then and then you get to some beautiful moments because of that, and like ayahuasca shoots you straight to the fucking center of the universe, and at least that
Whether
was
you're
my
ready or
experience,
not.
whether you're ready
Yeah.
or not, and like
Yeah.
right back to this place where I thought, oh, this is where like I was created.
Yeah.
You know, and I had these really deep experiences. I was able to find some forgiveness towards my mother, and I was able to see my mother
Same.
as a baby, and I saw my mother as a baby with parents that didn't know how to emotionally, you know, raise her correctly, and so she didn't have any of those skills to emotionally nurture a child, and so I couldn't be at fault with her anymore. She
Right.
did not have those tools, and you know, and she did a lot of other great things, but emotional development was just not a fucking thing in an alcoholic Irish Catholic household. You
Yeah,
know,
I
coming
can
from Long
imagine.
Island, it was just fucking
Yeah,
chaos, dude.
yeah.
It was chaos. So you know, the plant medicine kind of opened the door for you,
Yeah.
and then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so then from there I've just been open. You know, I've done a lot of, I did the plant medicine probably for I think 6 months.
Okay.
And then I reached a point where I was like, man, I kind of feel clear, like I'm really.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I think in January, and so since then I've been I went to an emotional intelligence leadership course.
Okay.
That was a real stretch for me, just because you know, I think there was 2 military personnel in that course out
Yeah.
of 80,
Yeah.
old ladies, young
Sure.
people, and then ended up in a leadership role with all of them. So
Yeah.
it challenged me, and it's all about vulnerability.
Yeah. You know, for a long time, I'm not a combat veteran, but I had a fucking pretty traumatic childhood, and there was a lot of violence, and you know, being homeless and being a junkie when you're a teenager, and it's rough.
Yeah.
And so I would always like have this thing where, oh, you don't know what hard is, right? But there's
Right.
like this comparative suffering thing.
Right.
But I can't treat people like that,
No.
because to me, maybe what was hard for me, you know, might not have been hard for somebody else, but for some people that's the only trauma they know, and that's the only story they know, and so like I can't minimize that, you know, because when I do, I can't meet people on an equal footing when I do that. So I'm always
Yeah.
judging like their suffering, their lack of suffering according to me. I put some kind of value on it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I make myself real lonely like that.
I completely know I did that because as I was getting out, I was going to medical appointments all the time. So I'm in the waiting rooms, and I'm like, oh, this person wasn't in special operations. They didn't do X, Y, and Z. And I think you kind of get out, and some of that stays with you a little bit. And then that's a very lonely place.
Yeah.
That's like the worst place, in fact, to be. So what I try to tell people is like, you know, because if anyone's like, oh, you did that, well, I was just a mechanic. I'm like, no, bro, you did your thing, man.
Yeah.
You did your thing.
Yeah, people feel like they need to apologize to you.
Did your thing, bro.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, I'm not wearing, you don't see me, I'm not wearing a hat that says or veteran or something like that. I am like completely
you're like here now.
Yes, yes.
Right? Yeah.
And that's the Uncle Rico story too, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You know, back in
my day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're a badass, you know, black belt jiu-jitsu instructor, but you wouldn't have lasted back in, you know, when I used to run the beach workouts back on base.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, you're probably right, but but yeah, there's a lot of that, man, and I think it's an important. It was an important tool for me. I can't tell anybody what's important to them, but I mean, we seem to share a little bit of a common ground there. It's like, if you've gone through a lot of stuff, or I've gone through a lot of stuff, like putting down and minimizing other people's suffering, it makes me gives me like this weird feeling of superiority.
Yeah.
Which I'll tell you what, having a feeling of superiority has never once made me happy.
No.
Right? It's like this weird gratification in the moment, and then I can go be lonely and superior all by myself.
Right.
You know, which what's the point, right? It's like at this point, I'm almost 40. And the thing I value most is connection with people. And that's something I've had to work really hard at this year, is like, you know, going out and actually having friendships and making friends with people, you know? So it's like actually I just started like fucking calling OJ to go skateboarding and shit, you know, like let's go see, you know, because I literally forgot how to do friend stuff.
You gotta have that, bro.
When I was young, it was just go wild out and chase women, you know what I mean? And now that I don't chase women and I'm married, I didn't have that anymore. So I literally didn't know what to do with people, you know, other than like break balls and go out and like, you know,
crack skulls.
Yeah, crack skulls and do that kind of deal. But that's
you gotta have that hobby leisure.
Yeah, it's not fulfilling, man. It's like, okay, now like my thing is, okay, cool. You know, we've met each other a handful of times, but instantly like the energy I pick up off you is like, oh, this is like one of my people right here. You know what I mean? Like I get this guy. And yeah, I value that connection more than anything. And I have to nurture it. I have to nurture that connection by silencing my own bullshit story when it comes up, you know, acknowledge that I'm looking to, my ego's fucking running wild and it wants to separate me. It wants me to be lonely. It wants me to point the finger and blame. And whenever that stuff starts coming up, I gotta go, whoa, you know, because that is the opposite of nurturing that connection. I feel disconnected when that happens, you know? And I mean, you seem like such a gentle soul right now. You know what I mean? Like since the first time, I just chill, you know, except maybe when you do jujitsu, a little less chill, but you try to be chill. You try your best to be chill. So it seems like, you know, from coming out and having a really hard time, like in a short amount of time, you've made some fucking progress.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, so after dealing with all that type of trauma and just learning how to be a fucking human again, like, you know, who's Prime Hall now? That he's not a mercenary, you know, like badass dude.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm husband, father. I got 2 kids, and then my partner and I, Don Tran, run the companies and the teams, and so we got tons of badass instructors that work with us. But kind of what sticks out to me from what you were just talking about is just I've evolved a lot just as kind of a student of life and student of the game, just where I've kind of fallen back and understood more. I've slowed things down and understood kind of more of where how I can be most impactful on a strategic level, and I've gotten out of the rat race.
Nice.
You know, those are the biggest things. And then now that I've gotten my oxygen mask on tight, now I can be of best help to others around me and be a force multiplier. But you know, I was in survivor mode. I didn't realize it. I was in scarcity mode walking around, and now I'm not. I'm in shifted to love or whatever.
Coming from a full place.
Out of fear, coming into love.
That's a powerful one, man. You said, now that I have my oxygen mask on, now that I've taken care of myself, I can help take care of others. And I think that's a fucking big takeaway. It's like, yeah, I have to, and it's not selfish. It's like, if I don't take care of me and the mess that's going on inside here, for better or for worse, right? And I enjoy the mess now. I think it's beautiful now. You know what I mean? So when I say that, it's not that I'm knocking it down, but it is messy. And
the beast.
Yeah, the beast, man, the demons. That's what's really usually they're demons. When I calm the demons, right? Now I can be of service to the people around me. Now I can actually like have some connection. If I'm fighting for my life inside, I can't really be of much service. I can't be present. You know what I mean?
You're at the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah, dude.
You're just in survival at the security mode.
Yeah.
That's like my son. Whenever we're going somewhere, first thing he asks is, where am I going to sleep? Is it going to because he wants to know if he get warmth and security and all that out of the way. That those needs have to be met. If we're constantly in that, then we can't move into creativity or unlock. You know what I'm saying? Self-actualization.
Right on.
Top.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful. And you feel like that's where you spend most of your time now.
I feel like I was in checklist mode, bro. Like especially the last 10 years, I was a robot.
Yeah.
And so I've had to humanize, like basically, I'm deprogram myself and gone through a lot of, turned myself over to shaman and done all kinds of crazy stuff. And basically, what I found out is just, everybody's part of the tree of life.
Yeah.
Grievances don't matter. And just be a student of the game, be humble, and be open to things coming into your life and how you can be of value to others.
Yeah, man. I mean, it seems like you're doing that, and I'm like sitting here and I'm listening to you talk, and I can tell it's genuine, and I'm like, I'm envious of your humility, because humility is not a thing that comes easy to me, and I'm always kind of left in awe when I meet somebody that's like genuinely humble, because from the place that I come from, I always want the attention, and it comes from a place of lack, and obviously I've done a lot of work to channel it where it's not abrasive to people and so overly apparent, right? But it's still there. I still want the hand clap, I still want the attaboy and things like that, and I can get in my own way with that stuff sometimes, and it can block me from really being in the moment and really getting into the things that I'm passionate about. So when I meet somebody that I find to be truly humble, it's like, oh man, I'm like, fuck man, I want some of that to rub off on me. So,
yeah, bro.
So it's cool,
Same.
man. Yeah, it's
Same.
cool. All right, man. So fuck, 'cause it left us with a lot. Is there anything you just want to part with? Any overall like lessons that you've received? Actually, we'll finish with this, and this is a question I like to finish with. What today, as you sit here, what scares you inside the most, right? Still to this day, what fears do you got to deal with that sometimes can still come up that you got to process your way through?
Yeah, death.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. Death scenarios. Being through near-death scenarios and like anniversaries of that coming. I still don't have my head wrapped around it fully, and I've done a lot of the surrender work.
Yeah.
And so that's, and I've gotten really far, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, cool, man. I appreciate that. I think when we boil it down, a lot of my fears, if I strip them, why am I afraid of that? Why am I afraid of that? It's ultimately I'm afraid of my needs won't be met, and because of that, I'll be left vulnerable and I'll die. Yeah. I think it becomes primitive to all of us, and maybe it looks a little bit different. You know what I mean? But if I really strip down my fears and kind of trace their origins, it gets back to this not trusting that the universe is going to take care of me, and that I'm going to be left vulnerable, and that a death ultimately. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a real privilege to have you on the podcast. I think we'll definitely have you on again in the coming months. And thanks for joining our jiu-jitsu family. We're really happy to have you in there. And where can our listeners? Obviously, we'll drop links in the bio, but where can our listeners find you and find out what you're doing?
Yeah, so go to deepinfitness.com or go to utlnation.com or go on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Check out my partner, Don Tran, Rick Breer, and all of our other instructors.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Getting Uncomfortable podcast.